April was a very interesting reading month for me. We had some new releases, we had some novellas, we had some very bizarre life circumstances happen that kind of just threw a wrench in my reading plans, and let's talk about it. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Heidi, and I'm so excited to be chit-chatting with y'all today about my April reading wrap-up. April was a really weird month. I did end up getting into a car accident, not my fault, but it really put me into like a funk. It left me so drained between insurance and car shopping because my car ended up getting totaled, and just the stress of like work and everything. During that like 2-week period, reading was unfortunately not a priority. Now, all that being said, I did end up reading and finishing 10 books this month, which I feel like is pretty good. It's still a very unique circumstance. Half of those books were audiobooks or novellas, which I don't normally do. I do really enjoy physically reading a book. Just with the weird circumstances, I didn't necessarily have the time to be reading a ton. And when I did, I really just couldn't focus for anything for longer than maybe an hour, and that included audiobooks. Audiobooks, I feel like this is probably pretty common, but people can just put on an audiobook and listen for hours and hours and hours. For me, after about an hour of an audiobook, I like mentally was just so drained. I was on the phones with insurance all day. So it was just a unique reading month overall. However, this month I did discover I enjoy working out at the gym while listening to an audiobook. Normally I do music. Music kind of just gets old, like it's just repetitive. And I've found out I enjoy listening to an audiobook. I enjoy listening to a story. So I think that's why I read as many audiobooks, I think that's why I listened to as many audiobooks as I did this month. And it really helped get me out of my reading slump. After going through a couple novella audiobooks, I ended up getting right back into reading and reading books that I actually enjoyed, reading books in like a span of a couple days. So really thankful to have audiobooks as an option when you're in a reading slump. But generally, I do kind of try to err on the side of reading physical books. But like I said, all things considered, it was actually a pretty great reading month. I read 10 books and my average rating was a 3.83, which is actually pretty low for me. Some of these books were novellas, and I don't normally rate novellas extremely high just because you don't have a ton of time with the characters, you don't have a ton of time for the plot to develop. So 3.83 isn't bad considering the types of books I was reading, the genres I was reading, the audiobooks and everything. But I will say there were a couple pretty bad books that I read this month, and I want to start with a book that I DNF'd, and I only had one DNF this month, and I still stand by this DNF, unfortunately, and it is one that I did not want to. I do plan to come back to this book. I just want to say that. So if you enjoyed this book, one, drop it in the comments below. I would love to hear, did you have the same experience I did, but then did you push through and was it a good book? Or did you just enjoy it right off the bat? But for me, that was Say You'll Remember Me. Unfortunately, I love Abby Jimenez. And I actually had other Abby Jimenez books that I read in April, loved them. This one was a DNF for me, unfortunately. I truly did not get very far. I got 22 pages in, and the main male character was compared to Rhysand from ACOTAR 3 times by page 22 by 3 different women in 3 very specific ways. I love ACOTAR, but the pop culture references in here, I know Roblox was mentioned, there were some political things mentioned. For me, unfortunately, with kind of just the funk that I was in, and this is not like her fault at all. This was just me and the type of reading month that I had. But because I was kind of in a funk, I wanted to read for escapism. And reading a book that felt so rooted in pop culture and the real world was just not something I was looking for at the time when I picked up this book. So when I say I DNF'd this was a temporary soft DNF. And this was actually my Fable Book Club pick for April. I reached out to people and I just said, what are we all thinking of this book? Because I know it's not just me. There's been a lot of kind of up and down feedback about this book. People either love it or they DNF'd it or finished it and wish they hadn't. I feel like people are pretty split 50-50 on this, especially smaller content creators who aren't getting paid to review this book necessarily. They're just giving honest reviews. So this is one I would love to hear what you thought about this book. Did you DNF it? Did you push through? through? Was it worth it? What did you love about it? No spoilers, please, because I do intend to finish this at some point. Just when I picked it up, it just wasn't the right time, and that's totally okay. I think after the car accident, I just kind of had a moment where I was like, life is too short to read books that you don't actually want to read. This is one where I picked it up and I just wasn't in the mood, and I didn't want my mood to ruin the book for me. I know there's going to be a point where I pick this up and I'm going to enjoy it. Just at that moment, it wasn't it. On the topic of new release books, we also had another huge new release that came out in April, and that was Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Contrary to my opinion of Say You'll Remember Me, I loved this book. I annotated this book so much. It was not my favorite Emily Henry book. I'll just say that. I think this is probably ranked 4th, if I'm being honest, but that doesn't mean it's bad. I originally gave Great Big Beautiful Life a 4.5, but then after sitting on it, I ended up bringing it down to a 4-star flat, which I still think is really, really good. That's still a great rating for it being ranked 4 out of 6 of an Emily Henry book for me. Personally, I think People We Meet on Vacation, Funny Story, and Happy Place were still ranked higher than this one. I want to talk about the things that I loved about Great Big Beautiful Life. And just to be clear, I don't do spoilers in my videos, especially my wrap-up videos, so you're safe to watch this if you haven't read this yet. The writing in Great Big Beautiful Life is arguably some of the best writing I've seen from Emily Henry. It was so vivid. It takes so much skill to make a small town with not much going on so atmospheric and so enthralling. I loved the setting of this, loved everything down to the weather each day, the coffee shops, the hotels, the garden. There's also this kind of reoccurring theme of mosaics, and that's kind of like why the cover looks the way that it does. It's not necessary to the story, but those little details are what hook people, and it's what people love about Emily Henry writing. Sure, you don't need to describe the stitching on the pillows on the couch, but it makes you feel like you are there with them. And for some reason, just the writing in this one really spoke to me. It is very much like optimistic and pessimistic, grumpy sunshine. I wouldn't say he's pessimistic, but definitely grumpy sunshine is the dynamic between the main characters. But with all of that, there's really good banter, and his banter is very, very dry, like blink and you'll miss it kind of banter, and it just kind of like goes over her head and she acknowledges it, but she just has this way of like water rolling off a duck's back. Like, she is just the most carefree person. It just made me giggle and laugh so much. As always, I feel like Emily Henry books have a strong emphasis on family relations on top of friend relations and the romance that's in this book. I disagree with the common statement that this book is very light on romance. I thought the romance was pretty straightforward. I thought it's not something that like I felt like I really had to like wait around for. I disagree with people who say this is not a romance. I felt like it was a romance, but there was still a lot of other things happening in here that we haven't seen in other Emily Henry books, which was new. It was refreshing. I'm starting to pick up on the fact that Emily Henry has this kind of like reoccurring theme of relationships with fathers. And if you think about it, there's almost all of her books, except for maybe one, has something going on with a father, whether the father has passed away and you had a great relationship with him, the father passed away and a secret of his is revealed, and then the main character has to kind of work through that. The father is a narcissist, the father is absent. There's a lot going on around fathers in most of her books. But I thought that the relationship between the father and the daughter in this book was very beautiful. We explore concepts of family loss and recovery and grief. And then there was also a big emphasis on mother-daughter relationships in this one, which was very refreshing to see, and I enjoyed it a lot. If you're not familiar with the plot of this book, this is not giving anything away, but our two main characters are journalists who are kind of in an application process to interview this woman who is in her 80s, and she's basically like kind of like the Kennedys, Marilyn Monroe. She was very popular, very famous in her day, kind of just this icon. And now we're exploring kind of the secrets of her life, what the press was talking about when she was famous, the years that she disappeared, etc. However, all that being said, if some of that rang a bell for you because it reminds you of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, then you are spot on. While I very much enjoyed this book, I felt like it was almost exactly a plot replica of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which was really unfortunate. I don't feel like the plot did anything crazy that made it super different from The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. If anything, I felt a little bit underwhelmed. I felt like the drama and the spotlight that was on this main character back in the day was just like underwhelming. While I think the writing was beautiful, while I think Emily Henry's exploration of expanding the genre beyond just romance was very interesting, I was kind of just like reading this for the vibes. I wasn't as drawn into the drama. I rated this the same as I rated Evelyn Hugo, actually. That one wasn't like a huge favorite of mine, but I think when it comes to like what the two plots were doing in comparison, I think Evelyn Hugo did it better. I think if you've read Evelyn Hugo, it's hard to not compare this book to it. I feel like we're in this period of books that are written in kind of retrospect. You look at Taylor Jenkins Reid, especially Taylor Jenkins Reid, but we also have books like The Favorites, where it is characters who are interviewing characters about their past, and these are usually celebrities, athletes, actors, actresses, etc. That's like a really popular genre exploration right now, and that's what Great Big Beautiful Life did. I just was underwhelmed. I didn't feel like it did anything better or different than what we see Taylor Jenkins Reid doing. That's just my thoughts on this one. I still highly recommend this. I think it was a good read. I think it was an easy read. I read it in about 2 days. And I think if you're a fan of Emily Henry writing, like if you're just somebody who like you don't care what the plot is, you're just reading it because you love how Emily Henry's writing makes you feel, I really, really think that you will enjoy this book. I think it's some of her best writing yet. I've been vlogging my Throne of Glass reread, and I ended up getting halfway through in April by finishing Heir of Fire. This was a 5-star read for me. This is just, on the reread, there's so much information packed into this book. If you want to hear my full thoughts, you can go check out my part 1 of the Throne of Glass reading vlog on my channel. I read the first 4 books. There will be spoilers in that, so just be wary if you haven't read the series or the Mossverse. Maybe just save it for later, but I had so much fun. Talk theories, talk conspiracies, and I have like a new way of annotating all these books. So you could see, obviously, these are pretty crazy annotations, lots of different colors, but with what I want to do with the Mossverse, this book is just chock full of information. I don't want to go too in-depth about this book if you happen to have not read this series, but there is kind of a blossoming romance of sorts in this particular book that just had me giddy. It had me giggling, and so many Easter eggs are planted in the first 3 books that I finally got to see come to fruition here. And on the reread, I ended up doing this one 4th. I'm reading everything chronologically, and I'm having a great time doing that. I do have some thoughts on reading order, especially if it's your first time reading versus a reread. So if you're interested in all of that, you can go check out the video on my channel. I do believe this is one of my favorite books in the entire series. So much relies on what happens in this book and the characters that we meet in this book. I'm so excited to pick up Queen of Shadows and keep reading. This is the book where the first time reading it, I was like, okay, wow, I really see why people love this series. It took about 4 books the first time reading through where I was like, I wasn't loving it any more than I loved ACOTAR Crescent City, but once I got to this book, all that changed. I also did a lot of Kindle reading this month. One of my favorite Kindle reads that I picked up was The New York Charm by Riley Winters. This book is by an indie debut author, and when I tell you, it took me so by surprise. I gave it 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it, and I have so much respect for indie authors. Not only do you need to write a book, which is freaking hard, but you also need to edit it. You need to market it to find beta readers and ARC readers that you then need to market it once it's ready to get published. You need to figure out how to publish it. She just did it all so well. And if you're following her Instagram, her posts are adorable. People are starting to do fan art of this book. So I highly recommend you check it out, and it's on Kindle Unlimited. The New York Charm is actually, I believe, the first second chance romance I've read. There's really none that are coming to mind if I have read them that really stood out to me. So for this to be kind of my introduction to second chance romance, I was ecstatic. I thought she did it so well. A lot of authors, I feel like traditionally published authors still don't understand the concept of show, don't tell. And I think for indie authors, you don't really have somebody guiding you to tell you that. But it's very clear that nobody needed Riley Winters to tell her this. She's very much a show, don't tell author. There was this scene where a character just goes and sits on a cardboard box, and the cardboard box just starts sinking beneath her weight until she's sitting on the floor. What an Emily Henry scene. That scene just, to me, it still sticks in my head. I don't know why I haven't forgotten it, but what an incredible way to show that a character is feeling defeated. She didn't need to outright say, I'm just feeling really down today. No, just the action of sitting on a cardboard box that can't support her weight, and she knows that, but she does it anyways until she sinks to the floor, and then she's just sitting in this collapsed box, sitting on the floor. It was so vivid. It was something like out of a movie, and I just really, really appreciated everything that Riley was doing with her writing, and I think she did it really well. We have this main character, Dylan, who's moved to New York. She's in marketing, and she ends up realizing that her business partner of sorts is her long lost love, kind of the one that got away. They're now trying to figure out, how do we keep it professional, but also we both kind of understand that we still have feelings for each other. And this book also, if you like books about books, if you like books about authors and writing, I know Ashley Poston does it a lot and Emily Henry does as well, then you'll probably really enjoy The New York Charm. She is writing book 2 and I think drafting book 3 already, which is incredible. So I really hope you go check them out. I couldn't recommend it more. Now on to a book that I actually started off enjoying, but by the end of it, I was like, what the heck am I even reading? And that is Twisted Love. Let me tell you, this is a book I should have just listened to the warnings. In fact, I should have just listened to my gut. This book sat on my TBR cart for 3 years. 3 whole years. In fact, the pages are yellow because it was just sitting there in the sun. I like literally didn't pick it up and it just like started turning yellow brown because I just left it collecting dust. And for some reason, this is the month after 3 years where I was like, I kind of want to read this. And here's why. I haven't read a single book by this author except for The Striker. Every Anna Huang reader hates The Striker. They love the Twisted series, but for some reason they read The Striker and they didn't like it. I actually really enjoyed The Striker. I really enjoyed the romance. I really enjoyed the tension. Was it a little long? Yes, but I was thinking if I liked that, then I'm probably really going to like the series that all of her other readers really enjoy. I was so wrong. This is kind of a millionaire, billionaire, brother's best friend romance, mafia kind of. It's like alluded to a teeny bit, but you don't really like learn too much about it. Starting off, I actually really enjoyed this. I didn't think it was gonna be like a 5-star read, but it was sitting at a very decent 4. And I thought like, okay, it's just gonna be like a fun romance, whatever. Like there's gonna be some mafia love, great. About halfway through, the tension started to get spicy, and I'm not here to yuck on anyone's yum, but I did not like the smut scenes in this book. I found it very degrading, which is fine, but a lot of times people role play degradation, but they actually still have love for each other. In the Twisted Love book, I just felt like it was degradation without love. I didn't feel like there was any aftercare. It was just, I didn't understand it. It just felt very icky. I found myself skipping them. And then beyond that, there was like a little bit of trying to figure out who is the bad guy. And I kind of just figured it was gonna be this like ex-girlfriend character and there was just gonna be some drama there. But all of a sudden, this like ball is dropped about this one character being completely evil. And within 2 pages, you did not only discover that this character is evil, but that character also admits to their entire plot. It just felt so Scooby-Doo. It felt very much like the, I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids. I don't think it's realistic, and I don't like it when villains reveal that they are the villains without any prompting. They literally just sat down and they were like, so did you do it? And he was like, I almost got away with it. Let me tell you everything that I did. I didn't even know there was supposed to be a villain. There was no tension that this person could have been the villain. I was just so confused. And then that gets resolved, but then all of a sudden there's another villain that you weren't even expecting there to be another villain. You didn't even know you were supposed to be looking for another villain. And this villain reveals themselves again within 2 pages and it's resolved and that's it. And I just feel like the book kept going. It was like it ended and then all of a sudden they were like 6 months later. And then there was another chapter that was like 6 months later. And then there was another chapter that was like 3 months later. And then there was another chapter, it was the epilogue, and I just was like, can we just wrap it up? I don't care. I was like 20 pages from the end and I just wanted to DNF, but I was like, I'm 20 pages from the end, so I have to know how it ends. I ended up giving this book 2 stars, and I think that that's being generous. And it's really frustrating because the first half was not 2 stars. The first half was like 3.5 to 4. The back half was 0 stars. So we're kind of just breaking even here. I do know that people do not read the Twisted series for Twisted Love. They read it for the other books that come after. And I did really enjoy kind of seeing hints at those romances coming into being. I am interested in the bodyguard romance that takes place in this universe, so I might still continue reading it. I just don't think I'm gonna do it anytime soon. The books that got me out of my little funk reading slump immediately after the accident was the Clecanian series, and that was Saving Barako and Tempting Alzed. These books, I know these are not the discreet covers, don't judge me. The discreet covers look like this and I think they are beautiful. I just happened to binge buy the whole series after reading the first book because I loved it so much. Then I found out she was slow releasing beautiful discreet covers. So honestly, these aren't terrible to look at and the spines are pretty, so who cares? I recommend this series to literally everybody. And I did a reading vlog of kind of my car crash recovery mood reading. And so I talk a little bit more about these in that reading vlog. If you like Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon, but maybe the characters are a little bit too alien, I mean, they're blue, they have tails, then you might really like the Clecanian series. Same kind of plot concept where women are getting taken by aliens from Earth and they're taken to this other planet, but this planet is very human-esque. In fact, I think it's even alluded to that humans have come from this planet and just kind of evolved. So they're the same species, so you obviously have just like normal looking people. So that's pretty cool, but the politics on this world are very, very different. This world kind of had a plague happen, so now the ratio of women to men is very skewed. There's 1 woman for every 20 men, and so they're also dealing with a fertility problem. If you enjoy fantasy because of fated mates, and if you enjoy like Star Wars, The Mandalorian, John Carter, you will really enjoy this series. I love sci-fi because you can get technically advanced societies that are very different from Earth. So because of everything that they've gone through, this society is very matriarchal. There are queens running every city. So each book takes place on a different city and a different place in this world, which is really cool. So you have this forest city where they live in the trees, kind of like an Avatar. You have a desert city, so it feels very much like Dune. You have regular cities that reminded me a lot of Crescent City. It's just so diverse, so interesting. The romance and the tension is so good. Don't let the covers fool you. There's literally almost no smut in these books. Like, you have to wait for it. These books are all about the tension. These books actually have quite a bit of world building. They're not just written as like a fluffy, smutty good time. So I actually understand why she's changing the covers, because I think that these covers actually do the world that she's taken the time to build a disservice, because there's so much that goes on in these books, and chalking them up to just being smut is actually just kind of scratching the surface. Something I really enjoy about these books as well, I don't want to call it found family. I actually think it's better to call it forced proximity friendships. Found family is like you kind of just fall into this friendship and like it just ends up being perfect. There's also forced proximity friendships where these women have no choice but to be friends with each other, but they are very supportive. They bond over Earth things that these aliens maybe don't understand. Every single time, it's so beautiful. It's so interesting. All the friendships are different. All the women are different. They all have different backgrounds as well. So if you want a very beautiful extraterrestrial world, if you want an extraterrestrial romance with really good politics, I highly recommend these books. In this one, they're kind of like roughing it out in the wild. It's kind of a camping survival theme. This one wasn't my favorite of the series, but I still give it a 4.25. And then Tempting Alzed was actually, I think, my #1 favorite out of the first 4 books so far. I thought the forest setting in this, like living in the trees, it reminded me so much of Avatar. The tension was so good. Like, she had me waiting till the last page. I was like, I just want them to be together. It was so good. So I highly recommend this series, and also very easy to read. Her writing is very immersive, but not complicated. I think that's really hard to do, and I appreciate her books all the more for it. One of the audiobook novellas that I did this month was The Fall Risk by Abby Jimenez. Complete 180 from my feelings about Say You'll Remember Me. The Fall Risk was a 5-star read for me, and that's extremely rare because it's a novella. I usually rate novellas 3 stars. Like, they're just kind of middle of the line. I'm not going to give it 5 stars compared to a 5-star 500-page book. They're just not the same. But The Fall Risk did everything perfectly. It kept it brief enough, like a novella should. There was still some plot tension, some conflict, but there was good character development. There was a very clear and concise backstory that applied to what is happening today, and the situation of the novella was so unique. We basically have these 2 characters who live across from each other in kind of an outward-facing apartment on the 2nd floor, and they're the only people on the 2nd floor, and outside of their doors, they have exterior steps that go outside. And they wake up one morning and there's no stairs. They literally cannot leave their apartment for the whole weekend because the construction crew disassembled the wrong apartment stairs and then just left for the weekend thinking that nobody was living in the apartment. So they strike up this relationship and friendship over the weekend, and it kind of turns out that this girl has just kind of been on the run because she's being followed by this stalker, and the police aren't taking it seriously. She's learned self-defense, she has a private investigator, and she just moved in and she's hoping that this is the place that she can kind of just be free of him, and she strikes up this friendship with the man next door, and it's just such a beautiful, like, kind of romance. I feel like Abby Jimenez handled it really well. Like, by the end, everything was settled. I didn't need to know what happened 6 months from now or like 3 years from now. I don't like it when novellas do like a 3-year flash forward and they lived happily ever after. Like, I don't need to know that. If I needed to know that, you should have just written a 500-page book. There's a reason novellas exist, and this was like literally just the epitome of perfection when it comes to a novella. 5 stars, such an easy 5 stars, and this was perfect Abby Jimenez writing. Because I read that, I also got hooked on the Improbable Meet Cute little series, which includes The Exception to the Rule, which is book 1, and The Worst Wingman Ever, which is book 2 by Abby Jimenez. These were really cute, but these are exactly what I think most novellas do. They weren't outstanding, they were just novellas. They did what they needed to do. I gave The Improbable Meet Cute a 3.75. I thought that this one was done really well. It actually was, like, the plot was something I actually wish was longer. I wish it had been a standard novel size. There was more that I wanted from the characters. I thought the situation was adorable. These characters are kind of like emailing back and forth. So if you enjoy books that have a little bit more immersion with like text messages and emails and pictures and stuff like that, then this definitely qualifies. But it's actually an idea for a book that I wish she had explored further and made into a novel instead of in a novella. Worst Wingman Ever was also really cute. I feel like it wasn't as deep as most Abby Jimenez books. I feel like she tried to like tie in some like family distress and things like that, but really it just kind of came off a little bit more shallow. I gave this one a 3.5. It wasn't terrible. Good Abby Jimenez writing as usual, but the plot was exactly what a novella is, and it definitely did not shine as bright as The Fall Risk. There's truly just like, there's no comparison between the two, even though they're both written by the same author. But I still definitely recommend all 3 of these novellas, both on audiobook and physically on Kindle, if you're interested in reading it that way as well. And then finally, a book that I really thought I was going to love, and I ended up giving this book 2 stars, and I'm so sad that I did, and that is Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I have only read up until this point The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, and I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. Very unique, very different writing style, definitely is like a slow burn, and was one that I didn't really know how I was gonna feel about it or what I was gonna rate it until the last page. Darker Shade of Magic was just very underwhelming in my opinion, and I feel like it lacked the creativity that I felt The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue had. I felt like the entire plot was just rinse and spit, repeating the exact same thing over and over and over. The main female character was extremely unlikable in my opinion, and I've read books with unlikable main characters. That's fine. Like, that is not a problem at all. But usually they're unlikability kind of contributes to the plot in a way. This was just like, she was just annoying. I didn't care about her at all. And I was just confused about the dynamic between our main two characters. We kind of just went through this period of literally half the book where she saved him, she stole from him, and then she got in trouble, and then he saved her, stole the thing back, and then he got in trouble, and then she saved him again, stole the thing back, and then he like chased after her, and then she got in trouble again, so then he saved her, and literally just like back and forth and back and forth. You're also introduced to a lot of side characters, and I mean a lot of side characters. And this is not a spoiler. Every single side character dies. Like it's so boring. It didn't contribute. By the end, you just expected everyone to die. There was no plot twist. It just ended, and I just was like, what was the point? I actually don't even feel like the ending made me feel like book 2 was even necessary. Truly the whole time trying to figure out what the point of this plot was. It's a very unique world where there's different Londons and kind of these different alternate universes, and we have a magician who is able to kind of step between worlds. Very interesting concept. I thought that was the most unique part about this whole story. But when it comes to what actually happened in the story, I was so bored. And I just didn't feel that way about The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I was really surprised. I did do Darker Shade of Magic as an audiobook, and the audiobook was really well done. The performance of the audiobook I don't think affected how I felt about the story. I actually don't think I would have finished it had it not been an audiobook, because I think I would have just felt like I was reading the same paragraph over and over and over. And there was actually times while listening to the audiobook, I had to check and make sure I didn't accidentally like rewind a couple chapters and listen to the same chapter again, because it was just the same thing over and over and over. It's definitely not a series I plan to continue. I know most of her books I feel like kind of connect in that universe, which is disappointing because I don't want to exclude any of her books because I had a bad experience with this one, but if they all connect, then I feel like I have to continue this series in order to understand the other ones, and I just don't really want to at this point. If you enjoyed A Darker Shade of Magic, let me know why. Let me know. Maybe you love it, but maybe book 1, you had the same experience that I did and you almost didn't finish the series and now you're so glad that you did. Let me know, because if that's the case, like I've read like Throne of Glass, book 1, I was bored. I was like, I don't understand why people like this. So glad I finished the series, right? Like it got better. So that happens, let me know. I'm so open to continue reading. But if it's one of those things where you feel like, if you didn't like book 1, you probably won't like the rest of the series. That's okay too. We all have our thing. But those are the 10 books that I read in the month of April. I think it was a very diverse, very mood-ready month. There was like literally no pattern. We had Alien, we had DNFs, we had Emily Henry, we had some weird fantasy, we had some terrible mafia romance. Definitely not the most stellar reading month, but the books that I enjoyed were outstanding. And I would rather have a reading month where half the books are terrible and half the books are outstanding than to have a reading month where everything was kind of just middle of the line. I'm okay reading bad books for the sake of finding good books. I did just post my May TBR, which I'm really excited about. May, looking forward, is going to be a big travel month for me. We're going to be gone at least 2 weeks, which means I can't be lugging around a bunch of books. So I ended up finding a ton of books that are on my physical TBR that are also on Kindle Unlimited, which I plan to bring on my trip. And I'm so excited to chat with you a little bit more about that. So if you want to go check out that video, it is posted on my channel. But thank you all so much for joining me on this little recap. I would love it if you commented your favorite books or maybe your least favorite books down below. I love a good recommendation, and I also love a good honest review. So as long as there's no spoilers, because we try to keep it spoiler free, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But thank you again so much for watching, and I'll catch you for my next video. Love ya.